It is the latest and greatest of the Sabretooth Tiger series, sporting the modern and dangerous kit of the new, but having the colors of the old. It is STG03 Scimitar Tooth, with a kit of head trap, beam sword, hammer, biped legs, and the leg ability of endurance, which buffs Metaforce gauge upon being attacked. Now, as the counterpart to Meisai Libon and a fellow member of Select Corps' elite force, more or less, this model, much like his counterpart, is absolutely packing the heat and the damage, but also rounds himself out just a little bit better than his counterpart in some cases. Head Trap is a setup-based skill that, once active, will passively damage any incoming enemy that tries to use a head skill. While this may sound relatively niche at first, just as a friendly reminder, head skills often pack the highest base damage, and more often than not will also pack more dangerous or more irritating skills to make use of compared to, say, a left arm or a right arm. So that passive damage to the head will also make it a lot easier to kill them over time, as it directly damages the head part while being ignored everywhere else. Right Arm of Beam Sword is a melee attribute skill, and essentially it serves as the counterpart to Meisai Libon's Hyper Beam. So it has the same damage output and potential at a ×2 damage bonus at 30% charge, and a ×3 bonus at 100% charge. And in addition, Beam Sword also comes packing with pierce damage, which makes it one of the highest base damaging melee skills in the game if all conditions for its damage bonuses can be met. Left Arm of Hammer is a more conventional melee skill that is a full AoE, meaning it will damage all parts equally and spread load the damage equally among them based on how many parts are still active. So a fully healthy target will have its damage spread thinly across all 4, while a more injured or damaged target may spread load the damage to, say, 2 or 3 instead, or even 1. Now, compared to Meisai Libon, however, Scimitar Tooth actually rounds himself out just a little bit better than most in some areas, but also falls short in others based on where you choose to use him or how you use him. In this case with Scimitar Tooth, his head's packing about almost 3,900, nearly 4,000 HP alone, which means he is going to be moderately tanky in that category. Right Arm of Beam Sword is packing just a little over 3,000 HP in this case, which means very solid overall, not overly fragile, but a really good hit might still take it out just as easily. But a base power of 1457 before modifiers is actually really good though. Left Arm of Hammer, having about 3,350 HP, is still very good too, even if the heat and cool stats on it are relatively low. Just touching on that with his arm as well, between high 400s and low 600s. He's not going to be the fastest to the line in that case, but the damage will certainly make up for it. His leg stats are just a little bit better spread out though compared to Meisai Libon as well. With a mobility of 823 means he's definitely going to be a step faster than his counterpart and definitely in the upper tier of where most biped legs will be. A melee resist of 1269, almost 1300, means he can hold his own up close and personal very, very well. A shoot resist of 800 is not bad, but will make him moderately squishy against anyone that is using a shooting-based skill. While his evade of 994 is notably higher than Meisai Libon's as well, it does mean that Scimitar Tooth will have a much easier time overall, either dodging or grazing attacks. As a pure set score, I would honestly have to rate Scimitar Tooth a very solid 7 out of 10, much also like his counterpart, given that, as mentioned, his kit does have some pretty solid synergy within itself, whether you choose to use him as a pure set or mixed parts. But in this case, just kind of tying to how Scimitar Tooth handles himself better than Meisai Libon, it's because of his leg ability of endurance. That means that every time that he is attacked, whether that means he dodges the attack or he takes it outright, it is going to be passively filling his charge meter over time, which will directly tie into Beam Sword. So while he's already trying to work on knocking out the opponent and building a charge on his own, every time he takes damage, he's going to be passively filling his own gauge anyway, which means that Scimitar Tooth will have a much easier time unlocking the damage output of Beam Sword without as much hassle needing to do so, at the cost that it does run him the risk of getting crippled easier because endurance requires him to take the hit, which will kind of round him back down just a little bit in this case. As mixed parts, I do have to rate him just a little bit higher, also like his counterpart, at about a 7.5 out of 10. Even though melee trap with Meisai Libon may not be super great, Scimitar Tooth's head trap, actually, even as niche as it might be, can definitely come in handy with a lot of team builds for passive damage over time, or even discourage enemies, or even real-time enemies in PvP from using heads in order to preserve their head HP, making it a lot easier for you to try to bait them into doing it, and then kind of tie the knot and lure them in for an easier kill. So across the board, he is honestly very tanky and very solid, but also just a little bit better rounded in terms of his synergy as a whole.